What's good, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Cover One Film Room, part, of course, of the Cover One Sports Network. I'm one of your two hosts this evening, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Eric Turner. And Eric, last week in the film room, we did something that we're pretty accustomed to doing here on the show, and we're joined by a member of the Buffalo Bills. We were joined by Kyrie Elam last week to break down some schematic pieces when it comes to coverages, individual technique, his game, how he progressed throughout the year, the mental and the physical side of the game of football. And we enjoyed that so much that we thought, it would be a really cool idea. What if we got another young and up-and-coming member of the Buffalo Bills to join us for another week here in the Cover One Film Room and talk shop and talk some ball? And Eric, were we successful in potentially doing that and making that happen again for another week in a row?
Absolutely. Back-to-back weeks. We're staying on the defensive side of the ball. This time, the trenches, which is probably our favorite. I feel like whether it's offense or defense, we're always in the trenches. And this week, we brought you Gregory Rousseau, starting defensive end for the Buffalo Bills. Greg, thanks for joining us in the film room this Wednesday night.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, and a lot of the comments are coming in already, and I'll tell you what, they're very positive. They're talking about how you could surpass Bruce Smith and how your career started off, man. We're obviously excited to have you in the film room to break down some of these plays, but let me get started with kind of what you've been doing this offseason, Greg. Get right into it and talk about, where have you been training? What have you been training? Like, what have you been working on this offseason?
Well, I train at Pete Bommarito's, Davie, Florida. For y'all who know where that is, it's like Fort Lauderdale, Miami-ish. And then really I've been working on just my get off, because I feel like as a pass rusher, that's pivotal, just getting off the ball, just getting that O-lineman on his heels and just making them have that moment where it's like, oh, damn, like he's up on me quick. So just that's been huge. And also just my hand placement, just trying to get better at my cross chop, double swipe. It's like, I feel like you don't really need too many moves, but you got to have you got to have a couple in your arsenal. You got to have a couple counters. I feel like it's better to not have 1,000 kicks, but be good at 5 types of kicks and rep them 1,000 times. So that's kind of my mindset with my moves, and just not doing too much and not overindulging and drinking out of a fire hose, but just knowing like I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, and then just knowing like you got to be able to play offense on defense to really just dictate the game to who you're going against, and the dude across the ball from you should be trying to stop you, and it shouldn't be the other way around.
I love that. That's a Bruce Lee quote about the kicks, right? That rather than practicing like 1,000 kicks one time, you do with 1,000. Well done, well played. That's a really good start. You're starting really high up. Well done. Way to set the bar. I love how you're already talking about kind of like what you worked on or what you're working on this offseason from a technical standpoint. Last offseason, I remember, you spoke maybe sometime in the offseason, maybe going into training camp, some piece talking about how going into last year, you were focusing on your pass rush plan and setting things up for moves later in the game and counters and those type of pieces. And from our vantage point, again, dudes who grind the tape, we felt like we saw that progression from you, especially from a technical side, especially as the year progressed. How do you feel, looking back on this past season? Did you accomplish like what you wanted to? How did you feel like that kind of that work you put in last offseason went towards you in terms of your pass rush plan and all that?
I'd agree with you 100%. And I feel like there's definitely more work to do, and there's ways that I can grow. But from year 1 to year 2, in year 1, I'm getting in the game. I'm like, oh snap! Like I'm in the game. Like let's do it, this and that. But year 2, I kind of sat back and I was like, all right, he's giving me this. Let me do this, or like he's giving me, let me do that. So like just being able to change things up and kind of just work my moves around a little more this year. It was a lot of fun, opposed to like last year, kind of drinking out of a fire hose, and just like everything was like a first time for me. It was like, oh, that's the first time that happened. Like that's the first time this is happening. But in my second, I felt like I was able to kind of slow the game down and be like, all right, like this is coming or that's coming, or just knowing like little things like first and 10 or second and 10 under center doesn't always mean run. I had the mindset my first year where it's like, oh, that's run, but like a lot of times, no, that's play action. So just little things like that. Well, it's play action usually when the down distance is favorable, like second to 8, second to 9, or whatever, maybe second to 7. So just little things like that, I feel like really put me a step further and let me play a lot faster than I did my first year. And I feel like I'll only play even faster heading forward.
Now, you talked about the game slowing down for you, and your go-to move, kind of where you've like hung your hat, has been your length, your long arm, your stab. Everything kind of goes off of that. And I'm sure when Vaughn came into the picture and started teaching you and dropping some knowledge in the defensive line room, he kind of helped you evolve in that way and maybe even pick up some, some tips when it comes to using that move. So when you're trying to land that long arm or that stab, is there a certain place that you want to put your hand, a certain placement that you aim for on any given play when you're trying to set up? And again, maybe that is just your initial move and you have the, your counter and secondary and third move. Like, where are you trying to land that long arm or that stab?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's kind of all about who I'm going against. So if I know I got a guy who's like kind of like oversetting, I want my long arm to be like right here. So like that's nearest to the football, that's nearest to the guard. Because I know if he's oversetting, I'm getting out, I'm running, my head is like down, I'm showing speed. I know he's gonna kind of turn a little bit, like I did it against the Rams. And just knowing that dude's he has this tendency. My arm is aiming, my hand is aiming right for the inside pec. So if he's number 75, I'm aiming for the it'll be the 5. Yeah, I'm aiming for the 5 every single time. And then like if it's a dude who kind of like is kind of giving me the edge a little bit, I'll kind of try to. It won't really be more of a long arm, but it'll be more of a long arm to club. And I'm kind of aiming for like kind of the middle of his chest, favoring the 7 if he's number 75. So that's kind of the way I look at it. But I know if I can get under that breastplate, it's really easy to throw the dude by, even if he's 300 pounds. It's real. Yeah, just like on this play right here. You see, he's turned perpendicular. He's turned towards the sideline. So I know if I get my hand right there, even if he touches me, I'm gonna be able to throw him by because he's gonna start leaning. He's gonna try to anchor right there. He tries to like kind of get me, and it's too late. I can just throw him by because he's using so much of his momentum to like keep going backwards and kind of keep up with me when it comes to the speed rush.
Here in the film room, obviously we break down tape all the time. I want to ask you, what's your tape study process look like going into week, especially talking about what you just did in terms of kind of like how you break guys down and how you attack. How are you studying, opposing offensive linemen or tackles? Like, what does your process look like in terms of determining who they are and then how you can attack them come Sundays?
Well, first and foremost, I'll kind of just watch a game. So like I'll watch a whole game or two, just watch the game, just look at the tendencies of the OC, just how they're doing things, kind of get a feel for them. Like, or do they run the ball on every first down? Do they like to go play action a lot? When they bring in a Y and a U, which is like 2 tight ends on one side, do they have those little tells? So I'm kind of just watching generally. Then after that, I watch straight first and second down plays and see what type of runs they like. What type of, do they do 7-man protection? Do they do 6-man protection? Do they do the protection where they pull the guard and the tackle blocks the 3-tech and then the guard's trying to block me? And then also, do they have a run off that? Because if they run off that play, I know if I see that, I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm going straight to the quarterback because they don't have power. I'm pretty sure it might be called counter O or something like that, but we call it counter pass. So if they don't have counter O, I'm knowing like, all right, I'm going straight to the QB. Like it doesn't matter if I see the guy pull, and then I know my studies will kind of back me up. And then lastly, I'll kind of watch who I'm going against. So if I'm gonna be playing the side, I'm watching the guard. I'm seeing does he throw his hands high? Does he throw them low? Is he patient? Is he gonna give up power? Is he gonna give me the edge or inside move? I'm doing the same thing with the tackle as well. So like my last bit, which is kind of will probably be like on a Wednesday, I'm looking at my one-on-one individual matchup and like how I'm gonna win. And then Thursdays are pass. So then when we pass rush in practice on Thursday in one-on-ones, I'm working to move. Even though I'm going to get somebody on the Bills, I'm working like, all right, I want to work long arm this week a lot. I want to work double swap. I want to show the long arm and then swipe the hand down and do a strike bang or a club swipe. I'm just to feel things out and be like, all right, this is gonna work for me. This is feeling good. This isn't feeling too hot. Maybe I can cross chop this week. So practice is kind of like my playground with going into the weekend of what I feel comfortable with doing. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great preparation. And over time, I'm sure that'll even evolve once you become more, settled into the defense and things they're asking you. And even during the game, I'm sure it fluctuates during the game. So a little bit of news that came out over the last week was the promotion of Eric Washington, adding a new title to his defensive line coach position as the assistant head coach. I want to ask you real quick, what type of coach is he, and what has he helped you develop or augment to your game?
Really, I'd say he's a super detailed coach. So he's all about winning in the margin. So it's the small things, it's the down and distance, it's the little things that separate the good D lines from the great D lines, and we're always pushing, of course, to be the best D line in the league. So I mean, there's that, but also at the same time, he knows that even though winning is like in the details and stuff, it's also sometimes in the boulders. So it's in the little things like getting off the ball fast. Like being accurate with your hands. Like that stuff never forsakes you. So you always got to be able to fall back on those fundamentals. So we practice those core fundamentals every day, and we kind of, and yeah, it might get monotonous during the season, but you got to stay on track because like you need those fundamentals late in the season, big games, playoffs. You need that stuff to win those ball games. It's usually the team that's playing the best sound football that wins those playoff games. So it's really like a mixture of both. And then just he's super, like I said, he's super deep. Everything. It's a play. He'll explain a play for 5 minutes. He knows what the safeties are doing. He knows what the rotation. He knows if it's closed middle or if it's open. Like he knows all that stuff. He knows what we're showing and what we're trying to accomplish. So like we're not just looking at the play like, all right, it's a 5-man dog blitz man coverage. Like no, we're going into inside leverage. It's we're showing cover 3, like a whole bunch of stuff. So just the level that he's at and the way he's able to like just talk about the plays and articulate, it's at a high level.
Yeah, it sounds like he is detail oriented, right? Right, Ant?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit there. I would say so.
Speaking of details, guys, we're gonna jump from the questions into the film right now. This is why you guys are here. This is why Greg is here. So hopefully you guys are able to see that. Greg, you able to see that?
Yep, I see it.
All right, so we're gonna start off with some of the run defense, and I'll admit, and I'm sure Anthony agrees, this was the area, even from day one when you came into the league, I was immediately shocked at how well you played the run. Not that you were bad in college, but how quickly your physical skills on top of your mental processing translated into the game. So this was a game against the Patriots, and these are back-to-back plays against the Patriots, and they're running a power run. So it's a gap run, double team on Ed Oliver to the second level at the linebacker position. And then, Greg, you're in line against the tight end. I want you to talk about your alignment and kind of what you're seeing on this play as it develops. I'll let it run once, and then I want you to kind of break it down or walk us through the scheme, your technique, your assignment, and what you saw on this play.
Yeah. All right, so first and foremost, we're in just a normal front here, so 6'3", 1'5". So I'm the 6 tech. I'm responsible for the C gap, the gap that's to the right of me.
Right.
And then before the play, if you look at number 75, the tackle, his stripe is kind of like head up. You know, his stripe is like looking at the goalpost. So I'm thinking, and he's kind of like peeking at Ed too, if I'm remembering this play right. So I'm thinking like, all right, like he's going down. And usually if he's going down, let's say the back was to my side, I'd be thinking, all right, zone read. But the Patriots aren't really a zone read team, and the back is not on my side. So obviously the tight end is probably going to block me to run some type of like belly play or whatever. Or it looks like maybe a white, whatever it is. So basically, then my fundamentals are kind of just to get into his chest and knock him back because he's going to tell me where the ball is going. So even though I'm responsible for the C gap, I can't just be a robot and dive my head in there, you know, because that's not helping the defense win. So it's always good to do your job and do a little bit more. So once I kind of push him back a little bit because we're penetrating front, I feel that he kind of like jumps inside. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not going to overplay it and fight with him because if he's jumping inside, the ball's not inside. You know, he's not going to jump into the gap where 38 wants to hit it. So I kind of just use my length to kind of keep him off me, and I kind of just wait there, and then the back just appears right there, and then I disengage and make the tackle. But it's all about, I feel like, just being able to play with your length, especially a taller guy like length, and also just being able to read the block and knowing if he's jumping inside, the ball's not going inside.
Yeah, and I love your use of hands. It's something I posted over the last couple hours on social media because you guys watch where his hands go initially. Perfect hand placement, but then watch as the leverage changes. As he wins initially into his gap, helmet, eyes are in the gap on that base block from the tight end. But then watch his right hand. He shifts it and starts to control that inside hand. It's something that is all over his film. His use of hands is phenomenal. And then that allows him to control that tight end along with pushing him back and playing on the defense's offense's line of scrimmage and then disengage and make that tackle. You see this all over your film, Greg.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I feel like you said, I didn't even notice that right there because I kind of do it a lot in practice and I kind of try to practice it. But just like you said, getting the hand off of his breastplate because you can't really do much when it's right there. But if you get one of their wrists, you're going to be able to disengage because the dude's not going to be strong enough to block you with one arm. Even if he has one arm on you, that's fine. You can still make plenty of plays with a dude having one arm on you, but two, not so much. So being able to just get that wrist, elbow, whatever it is, get it off you can easily disengage.
Greg, obviously we're breaking down this play against the run, and you articulated everything you were doing so eloquently and beautifully. And like Eric talked about, right from the jump, like your rookie year amongst all edges, you led all edges in stops and stop percentage. Like right out the gate, you established yourself as legitimately one of the best edge defenders against the run, but one of the best run, stopping defensive linemen. Was that something that Like, did you make a conscious effort to do that, or what I guess what enabled you to kind of take that jump and hit the gate and hit the ground running as a rookie, just being so sound against the run?
Well, I felt like just having my length going, not to sound cocky or anything, but just having my length and knowing like I can keep dudes off me. I was like, all right, I'm still like trying to be a better pass rusher. I'm trying to learn all the situational moves and all that stuff. So I'm trying to get better at pass rushing. So I'm like, shit, let me at least help the team out and do my job the best way I could. Do my 111th. Coach McDermott says 111th all the time. So just being able to do my 111th and play my role for what it is right now, because back then we had 30 and Mario starting on third down. So I'm like, if I'm being there half the time on first, second down, I'm gonna play the run to my best ability. So being able to use my length and keep dudes off me and gap and a half, make that play outside of my gap sometimes, take care of my gap first, just being able to do those little things I felt like was just me showing me doing my 111th the best way possible at the time. And it still is, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about gap and a half. It's something Anthony and I always talk about.
Yes,
here in the
dude, I lit up as soon as you said gap and a half. I got so excited.
You mentioned your assignment initially, right? And you played your gap, but you also played the backside gap there, which again, it was huge here because if you don't make that tackle, that guy's into the second level, and who knows with the corner coming down and wide receiver push cracking on the safety. So gap and a half, guys, is something we always talk about, and Greg nailed it there. But this play is, again, same game. Later, this was in the third quarter, I believe, same play, but instead of having that tight end base block you right here, they release him. Hey, Arkham, right? Exactly. And they have that guard from the backside go ahead and pull. So talk about this play. They tried making an adjustment, but Greg, you were there again, meeting the puller right in the hole.
Yeah, no, facts. And it's really like, it's cool to see offenses do stuff like this, because in a way, it's actually the same exact play. It's just kind of like, it's just kind of different with the guard who he's blocking and the tight end who he's blocking. So they kind of like switch, because the first one didn't work, obviously. So on this one, I'm getting off the ball. Once I get off the ball, the tight end immediately arcs. And then same thing with 75 again. He's staring at Ed Oliver, so I know he's going down probably. So once I get out my stance, I'm not really hesitating too much. I'm like, all right, down, close. So we say down equals close. So once I look to the right, I see the guard maybe 3-4 yards away, and I bring my hands. A lot of times you'll see dudes going with their shoulder, but it's hard to make a play like bury your shoulder into a dude. Like, yeah, it might look cool, but it's not always the best thing. So I shock him, make sure I get my extension, and then at the same time, I got outside on this. Tremaine's inside me, and then Matt's filling that gap. So I'm the outside portion of the defense in this particular situation. But at the same time, exactly. I'm boxing it. I'm not spilling it. I'm keeping everything inside of me. But at the same time, I know it can help out and make that play easier for my backers, because I ain't gonna put all the pressure on them.
Ooh, I love again you pointing out the hand usage and shocking him, and your hand placement again on this one is beautiful, right into the chest, and then you get that extension, you establish the control. What I also like on this one, you meet that pulling guard and you get low, like you manage to get underneath him, and you're super tall. Is you being able to play with that, and you see this a lot, like in your game, like you play with that leverage. You don't play upright. You're not a stand-up straight guy. Is that something you had to like consciously work at, or did it come natural? Like, because again, for me, I would imagine, I'm nowhere near as tall as you. I would imagine being able to play with that kind of leverage and play low isn't the easiest thing in the world, considering how tall you are.
Yeah, no, you're not lying. It's something that I needed to work on coming into the league. And like in college, you kind of just run past people. It doesn't really matter. But you just kind of bully people, kind of move people with your weight. But in the league, it's obviously a lot of competition. So playing low is huge. And like you said, like that's everything on that play. Because if I'm upright, the guard he's pretty low too. So he's gonna move me out of the way if I'm standing straight up. So being able to get low, they don't like when you get low. I mean, it definitely goes a real long way, game in and game out, and that goes back to one of those core fundamentals that you gotta rely on. That's got to be something that's like your backbone, like pad level, placement of hands, all that stuff.
Beautiful. All right, on to the next play. This game was against the Dolphins, and this one's a little different because we talk about gap exchanges a lot with this defense, because sometimes you have to spike inside to keep the linebacker, or in this case, Taron Johnson, the nickel, kind of free here. So walk us through this exchange, this processing, because you become the B gap player there, but that is to disrupt this blocking combination so they can't get the Taron. So you're doing your 111, and that guy is held up, and Terran's able to, take a great angle to the ball to force it inside, but then you disengage and everyone rallies to make the tackle there. So talk about this call, what you're reading. That's pretty important on this play. What you're reading as the offensive linemen are blocking towards you. What are you looking at? What are you keying in on?
Yeah. So like you said, that's exactly what this is. This is a spike, and it makes sense, especially with Terran. Obviously, Terran being a nickel, teams liking to run at nickels, is a smaller body. So in a way, it makes more sense to not give Terran that B gap with a 300-something pound guard running at him. It makes more sense sometimes to give me the B gap, let me kind of anchor the point of attack, and then let Terran just flow over the top, and there shouldn't really be too much resistance for him. And when it comes to this, at this point, I'm looking at the tackle pre-snap, but once the ball snaps, I'm looking at the guard. The tackle kind of stays on me, so he kind of like pushes me back a little because I thought he might keep going because they're running a wide zone here, and sometimes the tackle just keeps going. But he kind of pushes me back a little bit, but at the same time, it's kind of like it's like give and take. So I kind of take a double team, so I get knocked back a little bit. But Terran's also running free. There's nobody out there for him because they're double teaming me. So then Terran makes a great play. He cuts it inside, and I help and tackle, which is one person on one side, one person on the other.
Yeah, you guys all rally. That was that's kind of that 111th and everyone playing. And we talked it with Kyer last week of be that choreography. Like these plays are all scripted and this is really just great execution by all of you guys, especially to the front side of the play.
Nah, facts. This turned out exactly how we wanted it to turn out, literally.
Greg, talk about the nature of fitting the run as a defense. So it's something that Eric and I talk about a bunch on this show, a bunch on Twitter, because we get comments from people from time to time where someone will blame a player on defense and be like, oh, like he's just like standing there, he's not even doing anything, and they don't understand the nature of you have this gap and I have this gap, and you have to play sound fundamental defense. Talk about just what run fits look like from a professional defense's standpoint, and how everybody has a job, and sometimes your job isn't necessarily to make the play. Sometimes your job is to do the dirty work and free someone else up. Just talk about the team nature of what it's like to fit the run as an entire unit.
Facts. It's tough, obviously. National Football League, good offenses, good running games, but I mean, it's pivotal when it comes to just the ball game and being able to put offenses behind the sticks, 2nd and 11, just dimensional situation long. So stopping the run is huge, and it's something that we work a lot at, throughout the week. And I feel like it sets up everything else for the defense. So if you can't stop the run, you can't really be blitzing, because let's say you blitz, that's one less person that's falling back. So the running back hits, it might be a touchdown, it might be a 50, 40, 30-yard run. So, I mean, it's really all in the details. And like you said, stopping the run is a group effort. A lot of times it's like you need, like, let's say the 40 lineman. Let's talk about us. Like, everybody got to be in place. Like, if you look at this play, even though Ed's like fighting, he's getting the guard, blocking him. Plus, he got Armstead trying to pull him back. He's like fighting his ass off to get in that gap because he's got to be in that gap. Daquan, same thing. Me, same thing. Shaq on the backside, same thing, because it could be zone read. You never know. You know what I'm saying? So just everybody doing their job, it's pivotal, because when it comes to playing offense, it's kind of like one guy out of their gap and it's a home run. You could be playing great defense with 10 guys, like 91 or whatever it is, 91%. You're that's an A. You know what I'm saying? But if that dude hits that gap, it could be a touchdown at the same time. So just like you said, from a professional standpoint, I never looked at it like this way in college, but it's like every play, everybody got to be in their P's and Q's.
All right, moving on to the pass game. And this is something that, when you came out of college, I did a video on you of how they could weaponize you, because in college you played all over defensive line. Anthony knows, he's a big Hurricanes fan. They bumped you inside a lot, right? And a lot of times you were over the center, right? And so in this game against the Titans, and it's something that, we as fans hope to see more of, is they bumped you inside. You're more of like a 4-eye technique just inside the left tackle on this play. And so I want you to talk about, maybe the mentality of, bumping inside, how that works to your advantage, but more importantly, give us the, 30,000 feet view of this play. By bumping you inside, you have Von to your right, but then you also have Jordan Phillips as a D end over here with Daquan. Like, what's the purpose behind that overall play call? And again, what happened on this play? Because you really took it to the guard. I think it's Eric Brewer, who's actually a really good guard for the Titans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is one of my favorite plays from the season. Just being smart on 3rd down. It's pretty cool to kind of try to manipulate the offensive slide and kind of make them go where you want them to go. So we got Jordan Phillips and Daquan Jones on that right side. Then we got me and Vaughn on the left side. So kind of either way you put it, it's going to be a mismatch. It's going to be two big guys with one-on-ones on one side, or you got two quicker and can win real fast on the other side. So you also got Tremaine staring at the guard or staring into the backfield, showing that he's coming right on the center. So, I mean, we're kind of fixing it for a slide to go that way because you got Micah, but Micah is like a safety, so he's probably going to get out in the coverage. So the O-lineman's thinking, all right, a safety here, a linebacker right in front of me, and a linebacker over there. I'm probably going to go to the linebacker in front of me and the linebacker over there. So we already know the slide should go to our left if we get what we want. So then that happens, and even though the back's right there, we still got a 2-on-2, you know. So I see that the guard kind of he's like surprised, like he doesn't really expect me to just be in there, so he kind of doesn't know what to do. He's kind of like his hands are kind of down. So at that point, whenever a guy's hands are down, you don't just run past him because they're just running by the quarterback. So I'm like, all right, your hands are down, I'm gonna go straight through you. And by the time I start going through him, he tries to anchor, it's too late. And I'm already right on top of the quarterback. But I mean, I feel like this team defense from the start, it was a great job. Like just little things like Tremaine being intentional, even though he has a tight end man coverage, he's not looking at the tight end. He's looking down. There's a threat that he might blitz. And all of our linebackers, Tremaine, Matt, T-Dot, all do a great job with disguises and stuff like that. And it really pays off. So that goes back to the whole 1-11 thing. It's not just me winning my rush. It's the whole defense working together. And obviously me winning my one-on-one.
I was so happy that Eric picked this play, and because Greg, you said it, like this is one of your favorite plays of the season. This is one of my favorite plays, not just for you, but from like anybody. Just the way, like it's twofold. One, the way you go through Brewer, but how you take your right arm and then lift his inside, his left arm, his left hand. You get like the crux of your hand right into that wrist control. You lift him, he's up. You get like almost like a forklift action on his inside arm. He's off balance, he's off kilter, and then you drive through, go through him. Like, I feel bad for Brewer. Like, it's like,
awesome.
You kind of abuse him on this one. Like, it's a wicked good rush and move by you. So I want to give you, hell yeah, I want to give you your flowers for that. And then ask you, when you're lining up on the inside like this, right? Like, how much, if at all, and I'm assuming it does your pass rush plan change a bit when you're inside? Like obviously guards, centers, different body types, usually different frame sizes, technique pieces versus what left and right tackles are. So when you have a situation like this, how does your plan alter when you're kicked into the inside and you know that you're probably going to get matched up with an interior offensive lineman?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like interior dudes, a lot of times when tackles kind of rely on being in front of you and rely on their athleticism, interior dudes kind of rely on their hand placement, like how they can get you, how they can leverage you. So that's the biggest thing for me. So I'm running up at him. I'm hesitating. I'm giving him a couple of choppy steps, kind of just to make him see what he's going to do and kind of make him panic. And he kind of does. He kind of lifts it. He puts his hand out to the side. And when he does that, it's a lot easier of a target because his hand, if I'm looking at his hand and it's like tucked to his like jersey or whatever, it kind of all looks like mesh. It all looks like the same thing. He puts his hand out and there's grass behind his hand on the other side of it. It's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna grab your hand. So I grab his wrist because he's kind of all over the place a little bit because I'm getting up on his toes, but I'm also kind of just buying time for myself to see it. So once I do that, like you said, I get that right hand and I get my left hand plate. So that's when you see at the end, he kind of like goes flying a little bit because I got my left hand right under this breastplate, and then I just move him out the way and get the play.
It's so disrespectful.
Wow, facts. I wish I got to do that more last year, but we had injuries and like harder to move the pieces around. But like if we're all healthy, it'd be cool to see like what we could do with those little packages, me going inside and stuff.
So with McDermott calling the plays, maybe we see this a little more this year, Greg. What do you say?
I'm hoping so.
That was one of the questions in the chat room. No, we've gone over some of McDermott's philosophy, and one thing that we did cover, especially during that Super Bowl year with the Panthers, was McDermott bumping those guys, Mario Addison bumping him inside. He did it a bunch more in that Super Bowl run. So with that said, let's move on to the next play. This one against the Jets. This is one of your sacks, and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, using your length and the long arm to shove guys by, shove tackles by. Big hit here on the quarterback of the Jets. But I want you to talk about what you saw on this play, the set from the tackle, and maybe why you transition from speed to power. And then more importantly, the depth of the drop of the quarterback. That plays a huge role in the type of rush, your type of plan when it comes to attacking the quarterback. And so talk about how that affects your plan as well.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'll say like just the formation. You can tell by my stance, I'm thinking pass. It's I don't know the down and distance, but it's 4 out the core, so it's either like 11 personnel or whatever it is, 01 personnel. But there's a running back, and I know there's 4 people that are out for a pass. They're not even in the screen. Well, one dude is kind of in the screen, so I'm thinking pass automatically because a lot of teams aren't running the ball with just 5 linemen blocking and handing it to the running back. That's like a Madden. That's like a play you see on Madden. So I'm thinking
with a quarterback that doesn't run it, he doesn't count as a runner here. So you basically the offense doesn't have the numbers to run it in a traditional sense.
There's no way we got 6 people in there and we got Poyer walking up. So
I
mean, I don't see run at all. And then the tackle's also kind of giving away pre-snap with his stance. You see how his foot is kind of back there. I mean, the dude on the other side is doing kind of a better job of not showing it too much, but his foot's back. So I'm thinking like pass, let's go. And then on the snap, you even see Ed widen out before the play. He widens out because he knows passes coming through. He's probably seeing the same things that I'm seeing. And then on this one, the tackle with the quarterback being under center, the drop can't be too far back. You know what I mean? Especially and then just the way the tackle's getting out, like he kind of Ed a little, but after that he kind of backpedals both his feet and keeps going back and then turns sideways. So
more of a vertical.
Yeah, I'm thinking like there's no way I'm running around this dude. All his momentum is going back, so he's going to be easy to just push by. And then me and Ed kind of end up working a natural here because he's just blowing up the B gap, and it kind of like picks everything off for me. So it was a great job by all 4 of us. But definitely just the game we had working on this side was pretty smooth.
But so that wasn't a planned game. That was just you freestyling off of Ed's penetration up the field from that wide alignment, right?
Yep. That was a planned game, and then Ed knows that if he's hitting the B gap and he's going, then I'm gonna probably feel it, especially if the tackle's getting out that far. So,
Greg, you're in a 2-point stance on this one off the edge. Obviously, you guys like, and you in particular use a variety. How explain the differences and how you from a get off standpoint and just how you attack an offensive tackle or lineman in general when you're in a 2-point versus having your hand in the ground from a pass rush perspective. Do you feel like one gives you more of an advantage? Do you have a preference for one? And if you do, why?
I'd say I probably like the 3-point a little more. I feel like I can get a little slightly better get off, but at the same time, I like being able to be in the 2-point because I just see so much more pre-snap, and I try not to see too much, but just being able to be up there, I see a lot. I can see like a last minute motion. If I'm in a stance and this is like a jet sweep, and I'm in a 3-point stance, it's gonna be hard to see a receiver coming across. So just little things like that, I feel like being in a 2-point helps me out with. But my mindset doesn't really change too much. I'm thinking get off, and I'm thinking get to the quarterback no matter what.
Awesome. Oh, good to hear. Now let's go to this one. This is another one of those games, this time between you and Daquan. I'd like to know, is this one of those planned stunts, or is this one that, again, you saw Daquan kind of get upfield into that B gap and you played off of that on this sack versus the Ravens? And I'll also add, what is the difference between rushing in a game with Daquan versus Ed Oliver? Like, what are some differences between those two guys when they're lined up next to you in the pass rush game?
Yeah, no, that's a real good question. I'd say when it comes to rushing with Ed, you got to be like real fast. You got to be real up the field because Ed is going to be up the field. So you got to match his energy. He's one of those. He's super fast. He's one of those. He's probably like one of the, if not the fastest 3-tech in the league, in my opinion. So just the way he gets off the ball, you got to be going with him. You know what I'm saying? Or you're going to get left behind, and the spacing is not going to be right. So rushing with DQ, I kind of, not that DQ is way slower or anything, but he uses his hands a little bit more. He's kind of like, see how he's like getting the extension and he's arm over. He's real technical with it, so you got a little bit of time. So I think we did have this one planned, and even though the tight end was in front of me, I knew I could just kind of just cha-cha. And what I mean by cha-cha is kind of just buy some time, slow it down, and by doing that, I kind of get 78 to commit. You see what I'm saying? He has a hand out there helping on DQ, but is he really helping? Like, not really, because I'm kind of just cha-chaing and kind of slow playing. I even kind of hit the tight end, and I even let the tight end kind of hit me because I know he's going to hit me where I want to go. I know he's not going to try to really
ricochet. Yeah,
exactly. So I kind of let him hit me, and just being able to buy DQ that edge. And once DQ gets through, it's too easy because now the guard got to choose: do I stay in DQ or do I come off on this dude? So yeah.
And real quick, Ant, before you ask your question, you said this was a planned stunt, and that was my guess because it looked like Settle, who's the nose tackle on this play, is kind of pointing, occupying the center, right? He's kind of pointing that center so that you guys can run your game, right?
Exactly. You got it.
You had several really good spikes on two-man games. Like even on this one too, like especially with a mobile guy like Lamar, granted the pocket kind of collapses around him. Like you take a very efficient route right to Lamar. There's no real wasted movement. You bear down on him square, like he's got nowhere to go. And you see this from you consistently throughout the year against a variety of opponents when you spike inside on these games. Talk about how what makes you an effective spiker. Is it how you process? Is it your pacing? Because so many things just seem to click. And from my vantage point, it's watching you read the offensive tackle and read the pass pro to your side and read the game up front, and then your ability to pace all that and just your timing, your footwork, everything just seems to click consistently for you on those two-man games when you spike inside. So just talk about what allows you to win consistently when you're asked to do that.
I feel like the biggest thing is being able to, like, even if you're not tackle, but the biggest thing is you got to kind of just give them that earlier in the game. You got to give them that illusion of you winning outside of that and having that threat to win outside. Because I'm not here to sit on the 3-tech and it won't work. So just knowing, like, all right, even if I'm slow playing it, I know the tackle's kind of committing. All I need is just for him to commit to me just a little bit. He doesn't have to jump out at me, but I need him to respect my speed. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things that you kind of alluded to it. Also, just the spacing, the timing, not going too quick, not going too fast. Because if I go right now, like if I go like a step sooner, that tackle might have enough time to kind of grab DQ. I go into A gap, it becomes a mess. Lamar scrambles outside, and who knows what happens. You know what I'm saying? That's a bad situation. So just being able to time it and knowing that, like, and trusting each other, knowing that DQ's gonna get through and be in his spot, I'm being my spots, also goes back to the 111 thing, which a lot of defense does. So just being able to trust each other. And of course, I'm not perfect at it. I can still get better, and our defense can still get better at these games and stuff. But for the most part, just having that trust goes a long way.
Yeah, the timing, the trust, and like you said, getting this tackle just to open up towards you a little bit allows that. Yeah, I mean, look at the leakage here. Now that makes Daquan that much more aggressive and dangerous. And then again, now that timing that you had on that play, they have to worry about Daquan, and he is just occupying these two guys. And then you get the free run inside because of that. You get the point from Settle. It's, again, a very well choreographed play. And execution with a 4-man rush. And that's something that you guys have kind of hung your hat on over the years. So these type of games and this type of timing and trust and rapport really have really helped you guys become very proficient at these stunts and games. Just really good stuff when it came to the run and versus a pass. And, we appreciate you joining us again. I know the chat room's blowing up here. And again, we do thank you, Greg. And we do want to do this again sometime during the season, brother.
Most definitely. Let me know. I appreciate y'all having me on. It was great to talk through the days and the situations. It was fun.
And before we get you out of here, go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you on social media, what you got going on. Let us know, leading up to camp, what you're going to be working on. Drop any knowledge that you can on us right now.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna keep on working on all my moves, just my hand placement, my footwork, just playing with that urgency, game in, game out play, and every single play. And you could follow me at Greg Rousseau on Instagram, and I'm pretty sure it's the same on Twitter. And man, I'm just looking forward to this season. I'm just looking forward to the opportunity to go out there and win as many games as possible. Obviously get to the big game. So I'm just excited for just that our whole D line, our whole group to come together. And Vaughn coming back. We got AJ, Boogie, Flo, Daquan, Tim, Shaq. I can go on for days, but we got a real deep room. It's gonna be real fun to just go out there and compete and just get better day by day. So I'm excited for it, man. I appreciate all the Bills Mafia always supporting us day in and day out. So just appreciate y'all. Shout out to y'all, and can't wait for the season. Let's do it.
Yeah, hell yeah. And like Eric said, Greg, we appreciate you taking the time, like especially like in the off season, which isn't necessarily downtime for you as you're always working on your craft and trying to get better. So again, we appreciate you taking the time. And I don't want to speak for Eric, but I feel confident saying, like, you've just been a joy to watch on tape, like watching your evolution and progression coming
Appreciate
out
that.
from Miami. Yeah, hell yeah. Like what you did as a rookie and then how you added little tweaks and pieces to your game in year 2. You're somebody who, you know, from us as a film standpoint and how we evaluate and grind and watch the X's and O's and scheme and all that, you're somebody who we've been very excited to watch for this upcoming year. So just wish you all the best health and strength and everything, man. And just have a great rest of your off season and a great 2023. And hopefully we'll see you around again. And we appreciate the hell out of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Likewise. Appreciate that.
All right.
man.
See you later, Greg. Good stuff, man. It's always fun to get that firsthand perspective from the players, and just the nuance, right? The nuance, the details, when it comes to a play, when it comes to the technique. You know, we talk about it every week in the film room. We try to, again, make this complex game digestible and understandable to the average fan. And I mean, you can't get much better than that firsthand knowledge that Greg brought in the show tonight, right? And I mean, he just nailed it down piece by piece. I'm sure the fans loved it.
Absolutely. And what I really like when you get a player like Greg to come into the film room, and we talked about it a bit last week with Kyer, like so many fans, I think, see the game, and especially for a guy like Greg, who's got the size and he's got the length and he's got the strength. And so many people talk about the physical piece, and so many people talk about, just, oh, like, look at him push this guy around and how long and strong and tall and all that kind of stuff. But what gets lost in that is how these guys see the game and how they understand the game. And if you just you could pick, I don't know, like 17 different segments from this episode with Greg and just listen to how smart he is as a person and how much football IQ he has and how high functioning he is when it comes to this game. Like, he's just off rip and off cuff so easily talking about, I'm watching this guy's stance here and I notice his head is here, so I'm peeking this, and then I know this, and I see the surface, and I know what the protection is going to be, and I know how many players are out, the four out of the core, and knowing what, kind of package they can be in and personnel they can be in and what opportunities there are off of that. And all of that happens for him in the blink of an eye, from pre-snap to the average, 2.5 to 3.5 seconds that a play lasts. Like, his ability to diagnose it and break it all down. And again, I was just very much like Kyer last week. I came away from this very impressed with Greg Rousseau, the player, from a mental standpoint and how he sees the game and understands it. And you can always tell how much someone understands something by how they're able to explain it to you. And he just, like you said, broke down everything organically, succinctly, and accurately. And it was truly an awesome thing, man. Just very impressive.
And you can see why he's continuously trending up, in 2022, among all defensive linemen, DNs and D tackles, with 400 plus snaps, he was 7th in pressure percentage at 15.2%. And if you include the playoffs, he had a 15.6 pressure rate, including the playoffs. If you look at just playoffs only, he was at 18%. Which was 2nd overall. So 7th during the regular season in pressure percentage among all D linemen with 400 plus snaps. In the playoffs, he was 2nd at 18%. He was one of the guys, if not the only guy, whose numbers didn't drop when Von was out of the lineup. His numbers stayed the same. They were stable. And, that for a lot of the guys at D tackle and DN, that was not the case last year.
No, we talked about it a bunch. He stayed steady. AJ Epinesa was the one other who took like a bit of a jump, and everyone else kind of faltered a bit, unfortunately. And I think even more impressive around that time too, he got banged up with that ankle injury and he was fighting through that. But you saw just, again, him be able to kind of put more pieces together from a pass rush standpoint while not allowing, too much of his run defense to fall off at all. And again, year 2 was a nice year for him. And as you bring that up and show the pressure rate, like, this graphic is a perfect way to kind of sum it up. Like, you see the difference in the pressure rate for the Buffalo Bills between, Von Miller versus without him. And like you have it labeled there, Von Miller's absence greatly affected the interior D line, but for Groot, not so much.
It was stable. Yeah, he was stable on the edge, man. He did a really good job. And I love what you talked about with articulating the game. It's what we try to do every week. And man, back-to-back weeks, like, that's going to be hard to top, man. Like, I know I said we got Daquan lined up for some time before camp. I'm working on Deontay Hardy before camp. We're trying to get those guys on before we get out to St. John Fisher for camp. And this is that time of year where guys are freed up a little more right before camp and before the season starts. And so we're going to try to bring on several players before the season starts, man. And when you have guys on this team, you can see, you said it with Kyer last week, you can see why the staff and the front office loves guys like Kyer Elam and Gregory Rousseau. Like they're super young when they were coming out. They're super young and raw in many ways, whether it's mentally or physically. But you can see how they're trending up and they're able to talk about the game, and just it shows how much of the game is played from the shoulders up and from before the snap, not necessarily after the snap.
Yeah, and for Rousseau in his journey, think about, Eric, we talked about it when he was drafted. Like, he's still in the infancy of his career as an edge rusher. Like, this is a guy in high school who was a wide receiver and a safety and then didn't play a ton of college ball and is basically almost learning how to play defensive end while being on the job in the NFL.
Right.
Like, that's what that ceiling was, and was so exciting. Like, it wasn't just the frame, it was some of the things that he was showing while being so green and so raw. And when you see the way he already understands the game going into his third year, and how he can articulate what he's doing and how he understands sets and leverage and body lean and direction, all of those pieces, it, for me, and I know for you to a degree as well, like, it just makes all the physical almost kind of disappear, because when you see a guy who understands the game that well already and thinking about what he can do mentally and how that translates to what he can be physically, it's super exciting to just think about what his upside will look like going into this year and going forward, because this was a dude who legitimately, like, the sky could be the limit given his traits. And as he's continued to learn on the job, he's gotten more impressive each year. And these, again, everything we're showing here, like, these are really, really good plays.
Really good, man. And it's something I talked about, coming out, he had the length and he had the size and all that stuff. But I honestly did not see this type of hand usage. If you look at all of these clips from the beginning, the way he uses his hands, you talk about the leverage, how he can change direction. He gets dinged a lot for being the tall, lanky type of pass rusher, not the bendy guy. But look at how he's contorting his body and controlling guys and manipulating blockers with his hands, with his leverage. Like, there are different ways to win and succeed at the NFL level, and you're seeing him do it in his own way, and he's maximizing his frame, his length, and his hands. Because with that length, we always talk about first touch. He wins first touch more times than not, whether it's a run or a pass. And so that placement, I asked him about that placement of his hands, is incredibly important. Like, on that play versus one of the better tight end blocking tight ends in the league when it comes to blocking. Look at the hand placement on the backside of this hand, and now he just shoves that guy off and goes and makes the play. And I believe this was a fourth down or third down play. Like, you see these plays all over his film where he's able to control blockers, manipulate blockers, move his hands, create advantageous leverage to make plays on the ball.
The first touch piece that you made is so important, because it's one thing to, like, win first touch. It's another thing to actually do something with it when you win it. And with him breaking down these plays in the film room with us tonight, how many times did he organically talk about, like, breastplate and, like, wrist control and hand positioning, and him breaking down, like, okay, if I'm rushing on this side and the player's number is 75, based on this, I'm trying to put my hand on the 7. If it's this, I'm trying to put my hand on the 5. Like, he's very cognizant of his hand usage and placement, or even the play where he took on the pulling guard against New England. He talked about, like, shocking his man and then getting that extension, like, using his hands. You can tell that it's a conscious thing that he's worked towards and built, and you see it translate regularly on the tape. And, it's something that I think could be, potentially broadcasted a little bit more from a national standpoint. Everything is always tall and length and this and that, but he's got legitimately strong technique with his hands, both in terms of how he uses them and how he practically applies, like, what he's seeing on tape. It's not just, oh, well, he's big and strong and long. He's legitimately applying his craft, and he did that. That was in year 2 that we saw. So imagine what he can be another year older, another year smarter, another offseason under his belt. Again, what we already saw him talking about early to lead off the episode, what he was working on this offseason. We saw what he worked on last offseason, and it paid some dividends as the season went on. Imagine what he can be again. It's very exciting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Rick's asking who we got next week. Like I said, we're going to try to get Daquan or Hardy on next week. Daquan was on family vacation, so we couldn't get him for this week. And somehow I was able to land Greg. So that was awesome for him to join us. So we're going to try to get at least one of the players, two of those players, Hardy or Daquan Jones, for next week. If not, we still have a few more shows before we get out to St. John Fisher for camp. We'll try to get those guys on before then. But if not, if we're not able to, we still got the entire preseason. Last year, we had Isaiah Hodgins on during the preseason. So we can still do it during the preseason when there is more film that gets dropped. And we can go over that with the players. Paul Deck says, I had no clue we were getting this much of a student in the game when we drafted him. Dude's absolutely incredible. That's what's scary, because, again, he was very raw physically and mentally coming out. He was a guy that transitioned from safety, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so he was
a wide receiver and safety.
Wide receiver. Yeah. Yeah. So no, Paul, we're with you, man. We agree. And, he's always come across as that very intelligent, humble, younger type player in his press conferences, not in a bad way, but you could tell also that a lot of what he's doing when it comes to ascending his gaming and getting better in his game, it's happening from the shoulders up. And you're seeing that processing improve, and we're seeing that translate to the football field week in and week out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what's so exciting. Like, you got somebody who has all the physical tools and a lot of intangibles, but what are they going to do with those tools? What do they do with those intangibles? And we talked about it. We talk about it all the time on this show, but we talked about it last week with Kair and again, here with Greg, like that mental side, and what does it do to your game, and what does it do to you as the player? And he just seems like a dude who really has, to Paul's comment there, like he has his head on, right. His head is screwed on tight, and just a smart dude who knows how to break down the game. And yeah, man, very, very impressive back-to-back weeks. And we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. I'm sure everybody's going to be disappointed if it's just us, because now, it's been like, oh, Bill's player.
The bar really high.
Well, it's just Eric and Anthony. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's coming in the weeks to come. And also, Eric, for weeks to come, as we get towards the season, there's a lot of different information that comes around. There are certain pieces that aren't necessarily known to the public, but because of a lot of the relationships that you have built with this brand, there's certain things that we are privy to and we're able to break down and give to people, but we don't necessarily make it public. But what we do like to do is give those little nuggets of information and some extra insight, further insight, I should say, than we already give in a public fashion to, members of our, Cover One family, our insiders. And Eric, if somebody wanted to become an insider, what could they possibly do?
You gotta go to cover1.football and become an insider. Subscribe to our premium content. As Anthony said, a lot of the stuff that when it comes to behind the scenes, when it comes to information, when it comes to stories that are really broken after we already do, we don't want to make it public and go on social media. We share that with our insiders in the Slack channel. So for $57 for the year, you become an insider. You get a decal and a t-shirt. And while this graphic has that t-shirt up there, that's going to change every year. That's going to change. So we got the new version coming up as the season starts up. But, a lot of the stuff we do, we wouldn't be able to do it without you. And we wouldn't be able to do it without our insiders and supporting us with those donations, with your super chats, with you guys sharing our videos on YouTube and liking and leaving us comments. All that stuff goes a long way. And whatever way you can do that, please do it. Smash that like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. Let us know who you want us to interview next. Let us know who you think needs a lot of work, and you want us to break down their film. Let us know. Again, we couldn't do this without you. And, we try to cover the game and the Bills in a way that no one else does. And I hope that you guys see that value and are there to support us. We're still a small, independent, grassroots type company that is really driven by you guys, the viewers and supporters.
Yeah, and as we start to come into the training camp time of year, we get to some of our favorite times when we're going to practices and we're going to, the scrimmages, and that's where we start to meet up with members of the Slack channel, and you start to put faces to handles and tags and all that stuff. And I'll always think of, meeting GC in public, and he's like, Anthony, and I'm like, yeah, and he's like, it's Lackawanna Chuck, and I'm just like, oh my god, like, it's just being able to, connect with everybody. And I love this comment from Buffalo Man, who, I think will spin it. He says, asking for $60 a year is ridiculous and a scam. You're right. We should actually ask for more, because just how tremendous the content is. I appreciate all your negativity in the chat. You seem like a really
thanks for joining and getting us our exposure. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you seem like a well-adjusted individual.
Smoochies.
And smooches. Yeah.
And with that said, Anthony, and I love that you brought up, meeting guys that are on, social media or in our Slack channel as insiders. Every year we do a Cover One meetup, and it's in the works right now. So if you guys are in and around Western New York, we're going to be at camp I'm going to be there for the first week, but several of our hosts and creators at Cover One will be there periodically through camp, especially the early half of camp. But we are going to be doing a Cover One meetup. The venue is to be determined. We're still working on that, but it will be July 28th, somewhere in and around Buffalo. That's all I can say right now. We're working on some of the details. So if you're in and around Western New York, come out. It'll be a Friday night, probably like 6 or 7 p.m. to whenever. We do this every year. We have other, brands, podcasters, creators especially from Bill's Mafia and Twitter sphere. They come out and have some drinks, have some food with us. Again, meet people that are in the Bills community that support this team and support our work. So keep that in mind. July 28th, a month from today, we'll be there at camp. And then that Friday night, they're off Saturday. So Friday night, we can have some fun. We can cut it loose a little bit somewhere in Buffalo, and just stay tuned for that. I'll get you the venue here in a little bit.
I'm very excited for that. When Eric, you and I were talking about it offline. I wasn't able to go last year because I was out of town. I feel like everybody planned that on purpose. No, I'm just kidding. I am super excited to meet up with last year there were just tons of the photos and then the stories at camp from that night and all the good conversations. I was just sitting there the whole time and I was like, man, that's awesome. And in my head, I was like, wish I was there. So I'm pumped for this year. And again, like you said, like it's an awesome opportunity to, for us to engage with each other as a team, but also to be able to just meet up with a lot of the people that support us in whatever fashion that they do. And, as Eric said, all the support that we get from you folks, even just the positive comments that we're rolling in throughout the episode. We saw all the ones for group, but then we see the others that are for myself and Eric or for the brand as a whole. So whether you were here live with us, or you're watching this later, or you said something positive about this show or the brand to somebody when, a family member at a party or texted somebody, anything and everything, whatever form or fashion your support comes in, we're tremendously grateful for it and tremendously appreciative of it. If you're watching here on YouTube now, live or post live, please drop a like on this video if you'd be so kind. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. They, affect everything significantly. So if you enjoyed this content, please drop a like on this video. If you're listening on the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please drop a rating. Please drop a review wherever you're listening or viewing: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever have you. Please, 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 and thank you. Subscribe to the Cover One Film Room and the Cover One channel as a whole. We have you covered, no pun intended, pretty much every single day of the week when it comes to live shows, extra content that comes through. So go and hit those subscriptions, hit those likes, positive word of mouth, and all of those things. We tremendously and sincerely appreciate it. And Eric, anything to say to the masses and the people as we start to wind down here?
No, once again, thank you guys. We couldn't do this without you. And like I said, stay tuned for the Cover One meetup and stay tuned for what player we're going to have on next.
Ooh, very exciting. Very exciting. Oh, man, another like we said earlier, 2 tremendous back-to-back episodes with Kair and Rousseau, and we'll see what we have in store for you folks going forward. And for myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Eric Turner, for Greg Rousseau, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We will see you next week, live Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of the Cover One Film Room. And until then, again, I'm Anthony Prohaska. That's Eric Turner. Godspeed. And as always,